I didn't say that. I said the wave function explains the universe.
The wave function. Oh my gosh! You know that that's not true. You know that the wave function does
You
not
got
explain the
me.
universe.
You got me. I do. Oh, yeah. I was just up here fucking lying. I didn't think anybody would get me, but you got me. Oh, gosh. You win. What the fuck are you talking about? Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. How old are you?
I am 20 years old.
And what religion?
I am a Christian.
Sure. Um, so the claim that I'm making today is that biblical ethics are absurd. The reason why I make that claim is because God gives completely unjust punishments throughout the entire Bible. Is there one that I talked about previously that you want to talk about, or do you want me to throw like a new verse at you?
Yeah, so I'd kind of like to start with what your word of ethical means. I know that you're a philosopher. I'm not sure if you've studied philosophy, but if you don't believe that Jesus is God and they're separate beings, that means that most people follow Jesus, the New Testament. So if you're denying that Jesus is God, he claims to be God, then we have to separate what God says from the Bible and who Jesus is and what Jesus spoke and what he spoke for us to follow. So I bet you a lot of the philosophers that you would deem to be ethical, that you thought taught good morals and good things for society, they also had unethical beliefs. So I'm kind of wondering if you think that Jesus was unethical himself, or if this is more so God of the Old Testament being unethical.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it says explicitly that the God of the Old Testament, within the Bible itself, it says explicitly that the God of the Old Testament is just in all of his ways. So presumably the Christian is also on the hook for defending that. But sure, yeah, I think that Jesus says something unethical. You know, he makes it pretty clear that non-believers are going to burn forever. I don't think that for the crime of not believing in Jesus or not worshiping Jesus, people are deserving of torture forever.
So you think that every religion is wrong to say that there will be consequences for their unbelief?
That's a pretty bad misrepresentation of my position. The problem isn't that there's going to be consequences. The problem is that torture forever does not fit the crime of failing to believe the correct religion.
And also, there's a lot of different interpretations of what it means to burn in eternal flames. I don't think it actually is eternal. I think that once we are all with Jesus, he'll kind of finish their eternal suffering. Like they won't cease to exist in hell.
How many years burning alive do you think the unbeliever is deserving of?
I don't know. I couldn't give you a direct number.
Okay. I think I'm thinking like 0.
I think that there has to be consequences, though, and I don't think that hell is a place where people are just burning all of the time. I think it's a place that is separation from God, and ultimately, if there is no consequences for those actions, then it would be unjust for God to just treat everyone equally. I feel like that's not anything that we see in society.
So, okay, when we look at like Revelation 2010 specifically, one sec, let me get my ducks in a row on all these hell verses.
One eternity later.
When the 1,000 of years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, in order to gather them for battle. They are as numerous as the sands of the sea. They are marched up over the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and beloved city, and fire came down from heaven and consumed them, and the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Well, it certainly says that for like the beast and the false prophet and the devil, that lake of fire stays forever and ever. I'm not sure why I would think that for any of the other people that it wouldn't be forever and ever, but we do see verses explicitly, like the parable that Jesus says about the guy, the servant and then the servant's master, where the master goes to hell and he's burning and he's begging for the water. That dude has certainly at this point been burning for like thousands of years.
Yeah, so Augustine's actually the one that popularized this belief that hell is eternal. And before this, it was not really deemed that hell was eternal because of other verses in the Bible that would not suggest that this is the case. I think metaphorical language is used a lot throughout the Bible. And I don't think that just because it says forever and forever, it literally means forever and forever. It's just an emphasis on the idea that these people will suffer and that they will face torment. And if this is again a debatable subject, so for me to say that it's not eternal, I'm not saying that with 100% objectivity, but I do think that it might not be eternal.
Well, if it
Either
is
way,
eternal, would
though,
you think that it's
still,
just?
yeah. I mean, we're just debating a point that is not really going to go anywhere. If
Well,
it
I'm
was
asking
eternal,
you
do I
if it
think
is the case that it's forever, is that
Yeah,
just?
I do. I think it's just, yes.
Okay. So you do think that torture forever would be just for the crime of like being an atheist?
If they were given the chance to believe, I don't think that it is just if they were never given the chance to believe and then they suffer for eternity.
Sure, but let's
But
say that
given
they
that
are
they
given
have
the
the
chance
choice.
to believe, or let's say somebody like tries to spread the gospel, but then all the people are just not very convincing.
Yeah, I'd still think that they would be held responsible for their lack of belief if they're presented it.
So for the crime of failing to be persuaded by somebody's metaphysics, they deserve torture forever?
And I don't think it's our job. I don't think that I can go up to anyone and share the gospel with them. It's through God that salvation can be given. No one comes to the Father but through me, I think is a verse. So I don't think that it is necessarily through us that people are being saved. I think it's through God. So I don't think that those things really relate.
Sure. Do you think that a just punishment fits the crime?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Do you think that there's anything you can do in your life that is infinite in terms of the crime?
Well, yes, I do.
Like what?
Like not believing in Jesus Christ.
Okay, which do you think is worse, like raping 200 babies or not believing in Jesus Christ?
That's a disgusting question, but I don't want to. I mean, for me, I would say. Actually, I'm not going to answer that question.
It's a pretty relevant question, I think.
Yeah, but you know what you're doing, given my belief in Jesus. So for you to ask that, it's just trying to make someone of me that I'm not. So
I'm asking you, like, which one do you think God regards as worse? The person who engages in horrible acts with babies, or a person that doesn't believe in Jesus?
I think they both sat in his heart equally.
Okay, you think being an atheist is as bad as raping kids?
No, that's not what I said. I said in God's eyes, I think that he views them equally. I think in my eyes, I would say that raping kids is way worse.
But if God believes something, is it true?
It's true for him, not necessarily true for me.
You don't think that God's all-knowing?
I think he's all knowing, but again, I think it's hard sometimes for knowing that God believes something is true, and for me to believe that same thing is true is quite hard.
Sure. Well, I mean, that might be the case, but still, presumably, God's view is the true view, that if you and God ever disagree, then God is correct and you're wrong.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So even though it's like deeply unintuitive, you would say that being an atheist is as bad as like raping kids?
No, I don't think that's true.
But
I'd rather
God thinks
someone be
it's
an
true.
atheist. I'd rather someone be an atheist, and I don't think that God thinks that's true either.
I could have sworn that you just said that all these crimes weigh equally.
Yeah, they weigh equally in terms of they separate us from him, but I don't think that their punishments weigh equally. And I think that there is Bible verses, I can't think of them off the top of my head, that would deem it to be true that some punishments deserve some actions deserve different punishments.
Okay. You said that the crime that deserves infinite punishment is not believing in God. So presumably not believing in God is the worst crime.
Yes.
Okay. That means that it must be worse than like raping children because it's the worst.
Again, I don't think that's the case.
Well, it's just a contradiction.
Then the contradiction exists. I think that, again, you're trying to make someone unjust in the Bible who you don't even believe to be true, and you're separating the Old Testament from the New Testament, and then you're looking at a person like Jesus and saying that he's unethical. And the vast majority of people who follow the Bible, they're not holding to these verses, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, whatever, so on and so forth. They're holding to a man named Jesus. So you can say that, of course. Do I think that, in my own personal opinion, that some of the verses in the Bible are, in my eyes, immoral? Yes, I do think so. However, that is not what Christians are following. They're following a man named Jesus who lived a sinless life, who taught good morals. And I don't think that you recognize that. I think that you think that people who follow Jesus are like following the Jesus in your mind, like the Jesus in the God who did bad things in the Old Testament, whereas that's not the case.
We're talking about the New Testament. I haven't brought up the Old Testament with you because you wanted to talk about the New Testament. So we found an absurdity just within the teachings of Jesus himself. You've committed yourself to the view that not believing in God is the worst crime. That means that there are no crimes that are worse than it because it's the worst crime. That means that raping children is not worse than not believing in God because not believing in God is the worst crime. You are
Yes,
committed
and
to saying
I see
that
I see that logical fallacy. But again, you yourself, you look at people who throughout history, you look at philosophers who you would deem to be ethical people. And we could go into these people and they would have done severely unethical things, and yet you would still think that some of their teachings are ethical.
I
And
don't
then we
think
look at
Martha
a man like
Nussbaum would ever
Jesus.
do that.
Okay. Then we look at a man like Jesus, and the people who are following Jesus are not following him due to the quote unquote unethical things that he teaches. So you're having this view of Christianity that you think people are following, and we're unethical people, or we're following someone who's not ethical, but we're following like good teachings. Like you could not point out a Christian, or you could. A lot of politicians use Christianity, but like the vast majority of Christians are following something that is good for society. They're following something that is good for their own self-being. So I don't understand why you're hating on it all the time.
The majority of Christians don't believe in climate change. It directly affects me and it directly affects the rest of the world. And I mean, why would they believe in climate change? You know, they think the world's ending. They have no incentive to take care of the planet. They have no incentive to care about whether or not climate change is happening. So, you know, the majority of them just don't. And because of that,
So what
it's
would you say
basically
about all of
impossible
the
to get
studies?
climate change legislation passed through.
What would you say about the countless studies done by countless universities that show that people who are Christians compared to those who are atheist or even agnostic are more satisfied in life? They usually have a higher life expectancy. They have more children. Those children go to college. They have more higher earning degrees than average than the people who are non-believers. So all of these things that shows that belief in a God, not necessarily even Christianity, but a belief in something beyond yourself, is good for society. It's good for your well-being. It's good for depression. It's good for suicide rates. It's good for lowering your chances of getting into drug addiction. It's good for all of these things, and yet you are saying that it's unethical because you're pointing towards two verses in the Old Testament that are, again,
Nope.
in my eyes, unethical.
Nope.
But
Another
you're
straw man.
characterizing this as a whole of Christianity.
Is strawmanning your opponent ethically permissible under the Christian worldview? And if it's not, why do you keep doing it? I haven't cited any verse from the Old Testament with you. You asked me not to, so I haven't. I don't know why you keep strawmanning me. In terms of like the first chunk of metrics that you cited, the ones about like life satisfaction, all of that is deeply subjective. All of that is going to be dictated by how happy you're told that you should be. And I mean, Christians are told that they should be happy, which means that they're going to over-report them actually being happy.
I don't think that's true at all.
For example, that's why in a culture like Scandinavia, they'll consistently report being happier than a culture like, I don't know, Japan, because in that culture, the idea that you're supposed to be happy and be satisfied with the way things are, or just that you're supposed to be like over the top happy, is way more prevalent. Whereas in Japan, you're not really supposed to come out and say, "Wow, I'm really happy right now."
Okay, even if that were the case, the psychological effect where you tell yourself something each and every day, that means that your body recognizes that to be valid. Because if you tell yourself something is true, your body and the way you interact with other people, that belief is core in the way you act. So even if you're saying that the only reason why we are happier is because we tell ourselves that we are happier, it's still having a positive effect. So that doesn't take away from the fact that Christians are happier in general, or people who are religious are happier in general. Because if you are religious and you're telling yourself you are happier because you're a religious person and you believe in God, again, it's not bad.
But it's all based on a delusion. This would be the same
Oh,
thing.
so now you're changing your tone. So now it's
What?
changing. Now you're changing.
Well,
You're
I don't really know what any of that's
It's
about.
a delusion.
So
You're saying
these people might think that they're happy, but it's all based on a delusion, so it's irrelevant. If you want a similar case to this, we would probably want to say, let's take like a housewife. This housewife thinks that she has it all. She thinks that she has, a great relationship and great friends and wonderful kids. Everyone really respects her, when in reality, she's getting cheated on. Her kids hate her. They make fun of her constantly. All of her friends make fun of her behind her back. Her friends are literally all cheating on or making her husband cheat on her. She might think that she's happy, but she's delusional. So it's not a real, genuine happiness.
I used to believe people like you who said that there's no evidence or that people just believe in Christianity as a coping mechanism until I went into university, and I'm surrounded by people who study a whole different metrics of different facets. Either there's the sciences, philosophers, people doing statistics, and the people I talk to, their belief in Christianity, again, this is not representative of a whole, but I'm just saying these few people, is so core and fundamental to them that they have their statistics, they have their reasons why, but they believe. And I started talking to them about it, and they said even if they were not Christian, the way in which the world has come to be is a mystery. It's the greatest mystery of all. They told me about the contingency argument. If I was not a Christian, given the contingency argument, given the different arguments from Aquinas, given the different mentions from Aristotle, all of these different philosophers that you know of and that you have read their teachings, for you to believe that there is no God, that all of this came from nothing,
it's not what I believe.
Very interesting to me.
I don't believe that. You continue to strawman my position. I don't think that
the universe is eternal.
I do, yeah. That's not something coming from nothing. Unless, do you think God came from nothing?
No, I don't.
Sure, okay, then you are strawmanning me.
And I think it's super funny too how everyone always said that God coming from nothing, that he has existed outside of time, doesn't make sense. And now the idea of an eternal universe. Again, a lot of metaphysics does not necessarily support the idea of an eternal universe. The mass majority of scientists, as of now, do not support the idea of an eternal universe.
Do you think scientists study metaphysics?
Okay, I don't necessarily mean scientists studying metaphysics. I mean, a lot of metaphysicists do not support the idea of there being an eternal universe.
And a lot do. Let me give you some arguments. So, for example, time itself can't be created. That's because a timeless state is unchanging. So if time is created, then there's a timeless state that changes during creation into a timed state. But that's a contradiction. We would have a timeless state that both is unchanging but changes. So that can't be, which means that time can't come into existence. So time must have always existed. So there's the proof.
Okay, again, you can say these little things like this. I could come up with basically any hypothetical in the world. I could give you this slight argument. But for you to say that and say that this is the proof, and because of this little argument that you presented, that you are correct, again, I could give you a million different metaphysicists who do not support the idea of there being an eternal universe. They study this constantly, and the vast majority of, not metaphysicists, scientists say that there was a starting point to the universe. That's the general consensus within the scientific community, that there was a starting point to the universe.
Do you want to give a rebuttal to the argument that I presented?
Well, yeah, again, that's just one given fact does not equate to all the rest of the things that go against those facts being correct.
Okay. What I can do for you, I guess, I can put the notepad up on screen, and then we can just get you to explicitly reject a premise.
Again,
Because
this is just so
unfortunately, the
dumb because
way
you
philosophy
realize
works is not by consensus. Philosophy doesn't work on the basis of consensus. Philosophy works on the basis of arguments.
Can you give me
So,
philosophers who support the idea of there being an eternal universe?
yeah, Alex Malpass,
Okay,
Phil
can you give
Halper,
me a few more?
uh,
Okay.
Wes,
And what were their
or
ideas?
Wes
of-
Morrison.
And what were their ideas of there being an eternal universe? What was
Yeah,
their
for
evidence?
example, they present arguments that are in favor of all the arguments against like an infinite past being or ultimately failing. That people have tried to take away arguments from an infinite past or try to prove that those arguments are absurd, and they all fall apart. So, also, fun fact: Aristotle thinks that the universe has always existed.
Well, that you're kind of just not representing his argument in the correct lens, but that's all right.
So, premise one, a timeless state. One sec. Let me adjust this. Premise one, a timeless state is unchanging. Premise two, if time comes into existence, then a timeless state would change into a timed state, but that's a contradiction. Therefore, time cannot come into existence. Then I'll add a third premise. If time cannot come into existence, and time exists, then time always existed. And then I'll do premise 4, time exists. Therefore, time has always existed. Which premise here would you reject?
Timeless state is unchanging. Again, this is just so dumb because you realize that I can't comprehend most of these to begin with.
Which
and then
one?
You're going to say
Which
that
one's
just because these
incomprehensible?
premises are true. And again, this is what I'm going to say. I haven't even read them yet, but this is what I'm going to say to you. You could present this to people who are way more knowledgeable in the field. They might agree with these premises, but still disagree with your overall argument. And you would call them wrong. However, I bet you their evidence and their reasoning for why the universe is not eternal would destroy yours. And they're much smarter than you. And I don't know. So a timeless state is unchanging.
I think it's really
Time
cool
comes into
that your
existence,
dad
then
could
the
beat me
time-
up,
the
but I
state
want to
will
know which
change.
premise is false.
Did I mention my dad? Time cannot come into existence. If time cannot come into existence. Exactly. Time cannot come into existence. That's why there must have been someone outside of time to bring it into existence.
That's a contradiction. Time couldn't come into existence, so there must have been somebody that brought it into existence.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That's a contradiction. So time both can and can't be brought into existence.
So I feel like this argument could hold true for the idea of there being a God outside of time. And you could say that these given things are true if there is a God. So you're basically just changing the term eternal universe and there being an eternal God. And these claims are supported of there being an eternal universe, but these same claims could be true given that there is an eternal God.
But which premise here would be false? Because if there's an eternal universe, then there isn't a God at all.
There could be an eternal universe and there could be an eternal God who just maintains the eternal universe.
Okay, so then God never created it.
He created it.
So did he bring it into existence?
It could have been a blank state in which he brought it into existence.
Sure. So God brings it into existence.
Empty.
That contradicts time always existing. If God brings time into existence, then it's not the case that time has always existed.
It's like a blank state. It's a nothingness state where time exists.
Okay, so you don't think that God created time, though?
I do think he created time.
Okay, well then it couldn't have always existed.
I don't think that God created the universe in time, but with time.
Did God create time?
I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it that deeply.
Well, I'm giving you an argument that suggests that he couldn't.
I mean, I can see why these premises would be true, but I still don't believe that the universe is eternal. And again, for you to say that these things are true, and of course we have to support them. I could go into any one of my professors' classes who teach metaphysics, and I could sit them down and ask them if the universe was eternal, and they would tell me no, that the universe began at some point in time.
What's the argument for that?
I mean, they could give you one. I mean, why do you think that the vast majority of people do not support the idea of there being an eternal universe?
I think they haven't thought about it hard enough.
Do you know? Do you think that they haven't thought about it hard enough?
Yeah.
That's your argument?
Mm-hmm.
And you're making fun of my arguments, but that's your argument, is they haven't thought about it hard enough.
Sounds like you have no rebuttal.
The reason why you're not a Christian because you have not thought about it hard enough. That's why I think
sure.
you're not a
Well, help me think
Christian.
about it a bit harder.
Yeah.
What's the argument for Christianity?
Yeah,
I gave you the
think
argument that the universe is eternal. I'd love to hear the argument for Christianity being true.
Yeah, I think the contingency argument is a great reason to believe why there has to be something.
I'd take the contingency argument to be self-defeating.
Ultimate cause.
Sure. Do you want to lay out the contingency argument?
Yeah, so the contingency argument is that everything is relying off of something else. If you have your water bottle on a desk, the water bottle is being supported by the desk is being supported by the floor, so on and so forth. If you take this out for eternity and everything is relying off the other, if everything is contingent on the other, that means that all material things are contingent. They are reliant off of something else. If you go back again forever for eternity, this means that the first cause must be something non-material in order for the chain to exist, because if the chain starts with something material, again, the chain would be reliant off of nothing. So the first cause must be non-material in order to start the chain of causalities. It must be the ultimate cause.
And would you say that God depends on something for his existence?
Appreciate that. No, he does not. He's the ultimate
well, that
cause.
contradicts your first premise, because your first premise is everything depends on something else. Everything is reliant on something else.
That's material. That's material.
Oh, sure. So were you mistaken on your first premise? Did you mean to say everything material?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So everything material is reliant on something else. Everything is contingent. Or sorry, your second premise was something like there can't be an infinite chain of contingencies. And then it would need to arrive at something that's non-material. That's fine. My worldview can accommodate this. I could hold that the immaterial thing is, for example, the wave function, and hold that it all bottoms out in like a mathematical object that ultimately grounds the rest of the universe.
Wait, could you explain that?
Yeah, sure. So in quantum mechanics, there are wave functions which basically tell you, this isn't like 100% true, but basically what a wave function gives you, it gives you the probability, because you're not going to understand the true thing. Fine, I'll tell you the true thing, you just won't get it. The wave function tells you the amplitude of a given measurement outcome, and then these wave functions will become entangled if you have multiple related measurement outcomes. But then, of course, that implies that there's going to be one wave function that represents the entirety of everything, of all measurement outcomes. Which means that there's like some universal wave function that accounts for all possible measurement outcomes.
So you're thinking of like the dumbest possible hypothetical and then implementing that just so it can support your worldview?
It's not a hypothetical. The wave function's real. You reject the wave function?
The contingency argument?
Well, I accept the contingency argument.
But you support it with the idea of a wave function, and that word.
Yeah, that's the thing that everything depends on, yeah.
Is the wave function.
Yeah.
And where did you get this theory from?
Do you want like the name of the theorists? Alyssa Ney, Sean Carroll?
Sean Carroll. And what is their reasoning for this, the thing that you just said?
Yeah, just when something interacts with a quantum state, it itself gets pulled into a quantum state. This is called entanglement, quantum entanglement. So let's say I'm going to measure this electron. It's either going to be spin up or spin down. By me measuring that electron, I'm pulled into superposition with it, where now there's a measurement outcome. There, I'm going to measure it spin up and spin down. But of course, that implies that there's just multiple branches of reality. So we arrive at one universal wave function.
And you believe that to be true?
Yeah.
Or
this
you
is
believe it to
empirically
be
verifiable.
more true? And so you believe it to be true or more true than there?
It's empirically verifiable. Well, I think the idea that God is responsible for this is like giga untrue for the reasons that I've already presented.
Okay. So when you say empirical, verifiable, or unverifiable, whatever you said, that means that in your eyes, that everyone who has access to empirical information should reach the same conclusions as you do.
No, of course
why
not.
is it?
Humans are riddled with cognitive biases.
Oh, okay. So now you're saying that there's biases. Are there biases in the theories that you just presented, or is those theories 100% truth?
So I'm not making well, actually, no, I will make that claim. Yeah, I think that these theories are 100% true just on the basis of the evidence. Whereas there's no evidence for God, and despite the fact that there's no evidence for God, people have come up with coping mechanisms. If somebody gets cornered on the fact that they have no evidence for their belief in God, they retreat to, well, it's just faith.
Okay, so if everyone's looking at the same evidence that's 100% true, given that their biases are not in position or in alignment rather with the Christian God, which we can see throughout the scientific community, a lot of these people are not religious. Why is it that they're looking at the same pieces of evidence that's deemed to be 100% accurate, yet reaching different conclusions?
Every single person accepts the existence of the wave function in quantum mechanics. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Okay, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, why is it that these people would not say that the wave function is the thing that the contingency argument is relying off of?
Because this is specifically an argument that branches across multiple different disciplines. So in order for a person to arrive at the conclusion that I've arrived at, they would need to be engaging with multiple different disciplines. Disciplines like, for example, cutting edge quantum mechanics, cutting edge philosophy of physics, and also like philosophy of religion.
So you're saying that because you have this academic experience and you have a lot of different knowledge throughout various aspects, that deems you to be the truth holder of all?
A lot of people in today's day and age, like for example, Princeton philosophy PhD Joe Schmidt makes similar considerations. He says that the thing that everything is contingent upon could totally just be the wave function. A lot of people that study philosophy of religion have come to the exact same conclusion that I've arrived at.
And a lot of people who have studied the exact same things would arrive at different conclusions. So again, I don't think that
But what's their argument for that? Because right now, all you have is like appeals to majority. I don't care what the majority thinks. I care about what's true. And we figure out what's true based on arguments.
Okay, so you're saying, I'm still confused though, how an eternal universe, simply that it's eternal, is explaining its own existence.
I didn't say that. I said the wave function explains the universe.
The wave function. Oh my gosh! You know that that's not true. You know that the wave function.
You got me. You got me. I do. Oh yeah, I was just up here fucking lying. I didn't think anybody would get me, but you got me. Oh gosh, you win. What the fuck are you talking about?
That just sounds so dumb. Like that, it just sounds insanely dumb. And honestly, you might be the most well-known philosopher in this day and age if you go out and you start spread like this. This is a new, very like niche idea that I think you should start promoting because it's good.
I have been.
I think you could get a lot of people on board.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
So that'd actually be really cool. Well, yeah. So I want to talk about how the universe could not be eternal.
Sure, please. Yeah, tell me how it couldn't be eternal.
So the second law of thermodynamics, I think, is this, or the law of entropy. I forget which one it is. But if you're in a closed system, or are we assuming that it's a closed system or an open system?
My understanding is that the universe is outside of that categorization because closed system and open systems are things that happen within the universe itself. So it doesn't make sense to analyze the universe itself as being either a closed or open system.
But isn't that an important distinction that we need to kind of have an answer to?
It's one that doesn't apply to the universe.
So again, this is why it's just like these assumptions hold true, and we have to deem them to be true in order to make these scientific explanations. But then other assumptions about the universe and about the world, we don't hold true. But those limited assumptions rather dictate the entire explanation for why we believe or do not believe things. But okay, so if the universe had always existed, wait, actually, I think I have notes for this. Let me try to pull those up.
Did you run out of queries on ChatGPT? You need to switch over to like Claude AI? That's okay. Happens to the best of us.
I actually do appreciate it that you think I'm on AI. I do appreciate that. If I sound like AI, I don't know if that's a flex or like a bad thing.
Well, it
If I
just
sound
sounds like you're
a
reading
bot.
off of something.
Oh yeah, I'm about to be. Okay. So if the universe had
Granted.
existed forever, entropy would have already reached its maximum state.
That's not true. Namely, if the universe goes through infinite cycles of big bounces and big crunches, there's no reason why entropy couldn't reverse. So entropy,
But where are you
broadly
getting that theory?
understood,
You're
is
assuming
just
that
like the
theory
number
is
of
true.
ways that it could look at the micro scale that correspond to a specific macro scale. Like for example, we have one Rubik's Cube, that's the macro object. Well, how many ways could this Rubik's Cube be solved? There's only one way the Rubik's Cube could be solved. How many ways could it be, I don't know, like one turn away from being solved? There's a couple of ways, it's not just one. How many ways could it be completely random? A ton. Tons and tons of different ways the Rubik's Cube could be that are fully random, not even close to being solved. So specifically, if things get reduced back to a hot, dense state, as would happen in a big crunch, then it would reverse the macro scale.
And what leads you to believe that we're in infinite regress?
The argument that I presented earlier.
And did you present that argument?
I did, yeah. It's all on recording,
Just give
yeah.
me
It's even still on the notepad, so I just pulled it up.
Oh. Well, that doesn't really tell me why it's infinite regress.
It does.
And do you not think that is the universe expanding, or do you not think that the universe is
The
expanding?
universe is expanding, but the acceleration of the expansion is slowing down.
That's actually, I don't think that's a general consensus either. I think that most people might assume that it's still speeding up.
Okay, I don't care what most people think. I care what cosmologists think. And according to the new DESI data, the universe's acceleration is indeed slowing down.
Okay, but you realize that they take those same measurements like 50 plus years ago, and it showed that the universe was speeding up. So what leads you to believe that it is not slowing
I need
down?
the source for that 50 years ago, the acceleration was speeding up according to the dark energy measurements that they were taking. Because that's an incredible claim, one that you will provide zero source for. I'm getting divine revelation on this very matter.
I know for sure it was shown, at least within my grandparents' generation, that the universe was speeding up and it was not slowing down.
No, sorry, you're confused. I'm talking specifically a couple of derivatives in. The universe is expanding and the expansion is speeding up. That's called acceleration. But the acceleration itself is slowing down. And if it continues to slow down at this rate, then it's going to end in a big crunch because gravity is going to pull everything in.
So you're saying it's speeding up but at a slower rate. I think it's speeding up at a faster rate.
What's the evidence for that? That the acceleration is itself accelerating.
Do you think that we're going to reach heat death?
Nope.
Nope. So okay, again, you're kind of going against the consensus, but that's
there is
good.
no consensus as to how the universe is going to end.
A lot of people, a lot of scientists believe that it will reach heat death,
and a lot think that it's going to end in a big crunch. Another appeal to majority.
That's just not true. That's just not the case. You're going against the vast, I'd say that maybe I'm not even gonna get percentage because the percent is so incredibly low that they think that scientists, metaphysicists, they think that the universe is in an infinite regress. That is not the consensus at all
Donald,
within
can you do me a
scientific
favor?
community. You can
Would you
say
mind
that you
naming
have a
3
new idea.
cosmologists? Can I get the names of 3 cosmologists from you?
I could not. I don't study cosmology.
Can you name
at
one
all.
cosmologist?
I don't think I could. No.
Okay. How are you making a claim like the vast majority? How are you making a claim like every cosmologist believes this when you can't name a
No,
single
I never
one?
said every. I don't think I ever
Or
said
that it's
every.
like the consensus?
Because the people I've talked to within the university that I attend would not believe that the universe is infinite regress.
And by the people you
And,
talk
like-
to, do you mean like a physics professor?
Well, I'm in like they know people in physics, but I don't actually have a physics professor myself, but I've talked to a physics professor.
About this?
Yes, about infinite regress.
Okay. And what did he say?
He talked about the second law of thermodynamics. He talked about heat death. He talked about how energy is always transferring to a less usable form. And if some energy is always lost, then that means that if the universe were eternal, we would have already run out of usable energy by now.
What if there was infinite energy to begin with?
I didn't ask him that.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he's. I guess that would be like a really surprising claim if he was saying like this is decisively true. Insofar as my understanding is that among cosmologists, it's still an open question as to the correct model. That cosmology is a quite fractured industry at the moment. But I have a philosophical argument that establishes that the universe has always existed, and there are many models that are supported by data, like the Big Bounce, Big Crunch model, that are in line with this proposal.
Okay, so would you accept the idea that your position is not a very popular one within the field, or do you think it is a popular one?
I don't think that it's any less popular than any other position. The field
think
is
that
very striated.
Do you think that which claim do you think is more true, has more consensus? There being a start, quote unquote, the Big Bang, or the universe is eternal?
That's a great question. Well, definitely not the one that you're suggesting. Here's a survey of physicists. According to 68%, the majority, if you will, the Big Bang is a theory that says that the universe evolved from a hot, dense state that says nothing about whether there was an absolute beginning of time or not. So the Big Bang does not claim that. According to the majority of cosmologists, the Big Bang makes no claims about being the beginning of the universe. It only claims to be a rapid expansion of the universe.
I didn't even see it. Could you pull that back up?
Yep. Okay.
Can you unzoom?
Sure. Although it's going to be small, but sure. Okay.
Okay.
The Big Bang is a theory that says that the universe evolved from a hot, dense state that says nothing about whether there was an absolute beginning of time or not.
Wait, what percentage is the first one? An absolute beginning of time with a singularity at its start. Percentage
11%.
is 11%. And then which one is 68%? A theory that says the universe evolved from a hot dense start says nothing about whether it was an absolute. And where is this study taken?
Yeah, this is done by Phil Halper. It's a survey of cosmologists. I can find the exact one. Phil Halper survey of cosmologists. Yeah, it's titled Copenhagen Survey on Black Holes and Fundamental Physics by Alice Chen, Phil Halper, and Nayesh Afshorty.
So if I pulled up a different one that shows that a lot of scientists would believe that there's a start to the universe, that wouldn't change your mind?
I'd definitely take that and look to evaluate the data. Please do that. Yeah, that would at that point I would have to dig through to determine which one is more reliable.
Why are you saying this so sarcastically?
I'm not. I'm enthusiastic. That sounds great.
It sounds incredibly sarcastic. Let me see what this abstract is.
A few moments later.
So you don't think that there is a consensus that the world started from a singularity
No.
because of the survey you just gave me, or just because
Yeah.
of your talks with other people?
Because of the survey of cosmologists, I come to the opinion that most cosmologists don't believe that the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe.
2,000 years later.
It's also interesting why there's hardly no surveys even disproving what I'm saying.
There
Like,
is.
there's just no
It's this
surveys
one.
to be. Like, I can't even find that one.
It's titled Copenhagen Survey on Black Holes and Fundamental Physics. If you look into it, if you type it up, you'll get one from arxiv.org, and you'll or I guess that's the only .org. Oh, there's one at Harvard University. There's one from ResearchGate.
I should be going to my university's library, because then I could probably find it. I mean, yeah, you probably are right. I mean, you're just like know so much more than me. So a lot of the things I say, like, I can't defend fully because I don't even know what the arguments mean a lot of
You
the
should
time.
look into it. You should look into it more deeply. Is there anything
but
else
then
you wanted
again,
to talk about?
Yeah, no, this is not something I would say. But if I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm 50-50 is whether the universe is eternal or whether a God brought it into existence. Why would I rather believe that the universe is eternal?
You shouldn't be 50-50. You should accept the argument that I gave and be 100-0.
That's never the case in any belief you have.
Okay, then if you wanted to be epistemically humble, you should accept the argument that I gave you and be like 95-5.
But again, the argument you gave me, I could go to talk to someone else tomorrow and they'd have a different argument. I'd be like, wow, given your premises and given what you said, that makes so much sense. Then I could go to talk to my other friend the next day and he gave me a completely argument how we're in a simulation. I'm like, wow, given your premises, this sounds good. This is correct. So just because you set forth a set of premises that are deemed to be true does not necessarily mean that they are true. And that's where I kind of like, I've heard probably 10 theories of how the world came to be, and they all sound so good. And everyone always gives me their premises. I'm like, yep, check, 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 check. And at that point, I would think that we're in a simulation, that there's aliens and zombies, and that we're not real, and that this is just all a dream. Like, if I combine all of these different theories that I've quote unquote agreed with, I think I would not. I don't even know what would be going on right now.
Yeah. Is there any premises that you'd like to present for any of the other models? And I'd be happy to tell you which premise is wrong.
Yeah. Next time, I'll write it down.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
All right. Appreciate you.
Yep. Hey, thanks for coming on. That dude was, it was something. He had a lot more wind at the beginning, one might notice.